Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about the total lunar eclipse in Virgo, which is actually a blood moon taking place March the 3rd. So we obviously have had the solar eclipse in Aquarius, and that was February 17th. A little bit more volatile, I think a lot of astrologers are saying, oh, it's a little bit freaky. And obviously because Aquarius is a fixed sign, sometimes things are delayed. So for many of you, you might have gotten the themes of the eclipse a couple of days later. And for others, you probably didn't feel it at all because it wasn't close to any of your aspects in your chart. So for example, for me, I've got nothing in Aquarius, nothing in my second house. Didn't really feel it very much, although I did get a bit of a revelation a couple of days later and I was like, that was the eclipse. So don't worry if you went through that eclipse without events, probably for the best, because I definitely know a few Cancer risings that had a lot of deception on that eclipse. So for this Virgo eclipse, it's a little bit easier and nicer. A lot of astrologers will look at the chart and say, weirdly too quiet, what's going on here? If any of you watch my 2026 horoscopes, I already talked about this eclipse and how it was actually quite successful. And funny enough, I actually used the phrase a bit too good to be true. And not in that, you have to await deception, but that it's actually quite quiet, almost the calm before the storm, I want to say. March generally looks like a nice month, so it's not anything tragic or scary. I think Jupiter is offering a lot of protection to this full moon as well. And, although we do have Saturn and Neptune conjunct in Aries and Mercury is retrograding in Pisces, there's generally a feeling of we can't quite go through front forward, but we also are not going backwards either. Of course, Mars now being in Pisces as well is a little bit more sort of, okay, passive aggressive. It's not going to add any major shades to this particular moon, but of course it is the opposite of Virgo, so it is going to be opposing the full moon. And if you do have any prominent placements in Virgo and Pisces, you might just feel a little bit more touchy with certain things. Like I said, a little bit more sarcastic or more passive aggressive, especially because a couple of hours before this eclipse, it is going to be squaring Uranus as well. Again, it's not deceptive like the Aquarius eclipse, but it's still a little bit like, I don't know, there's a feeling of things being left unsaid. Can you see that I'm sort of touchy about this myself? I'm like, oh my God, Abigail, get your words out. But yeah, there's just an unsaid feeling here. It's not bad and it's not good. It's just, why is it so quiet, right? So let's look at the chart itself. Let's get my thing up. I do actually have the chart in front of me because I do not have that in the top of my head. I'm not that advanced right now. I just have my iPad in front of me. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm just looking at the chart so I can make sure everything is detailed and specific. Okay, so we have the moon, and that is taking place at 12 degrees, which is the second decan of Virgo. That is associated with the Nine of Pentacles tarot card, which is a very successful card. And it's actually got strategic advantage to it as well, which I love. This particular decan is ruled by Venus and Saturn, and I always think when you put the hard work in, you are rewarded. So even though Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and of course we have to remember that Mercury is now retrograde in Pisces, so that does add shades to this eclipse, and that communication is really not the best. It's a little bit delusional, if anything. And of course Venus and Saturn together is a Capricorn triplicity, saying there's an element of hard work here. But of course Venus will reward that hard work, and this tarot card is actually associated with positivity and success. Again, it's a bit too good to be true. It's almost like getting something here and you're like, well, don't take it, in case someone's like, oh, just kidding, and it's like, you bastard, So actually it might be feeling like, okay, I put the hard work in, I'm getting success, and I don't feel like I've earned it. But you have earned it. This is a full moon where we release and we let go, we move on to the next chapter. And even though we do have an eclipse in 2027 in Virgo, a penumbral eclipse, it certainly feels like the end of a story here for me personally. And actually, I've been mistakenly telling people, though there's no eclipse, this is the last eclipse of Virgo, and it's not, but it just feels like it to me because it's so conclusive, right? And so there is an element of living your life with spontaneity and playfulness, and not worrying that if you allow yourself to have pleasure or fun that you won't get the reward, or like, I don't deserve to do that. Like, Virgo's very perfectionist. We've got the South Node in Virgo trying to get rid of that perfection nature. Perfectionist, is that a word? Perfectionist must be a word. I'm a perfectionist. Yeah, perfectionist. Hypercritical is probably what I'm trying to say as well. And saying, what did I do to deserve this? And actually, maybe you just deserve love. Maybe you just deserve nice things. You don't have to do anything for it, and you don't have to turn down a gift when it's given to you because you don't think you deserve it. And actually, I think there's an element here that, you know, we want to give more than we take. But it's all about being grateful for what we have and saying, okay, you know what, maybe I do deserve to have things. I'm talking to myself here as well, because I never celebrate the things that I do. And I'm like, oh, I'm always saying that. Like when I got my PhD, I feel like I barely celebrated. I was like, yeah, on to the next thing. 5 years of my life. So I think it's definitely the earth energy, because I'm Capricorn rising. I think it's the earth energy that kind of makes us think we've got to move on to the next thing. And Virgo obviously really touts that. But at the same time, you have to realize that you can enjoy certain things. So that's really what that particular degree point is talking about. So of course, if you have anything from 10 to 19 degrees in Virgo, Pisces, Sagittarius or Gemini, this will impact you the most. So if you have something like a 29-degree Virgo moon, it's probably not close enough for it to really affect you. You might still feel certain things, but I think it's a little bit too far off. So always check the degree of your birth chart and in that particular realm as well. So this is in a 4-degree orb of the South Node in Virgo, which is why I'm saying we kind of like need to create new habits and release that energy of perfectionism and hypercriticism. But also it's karmic, you know, that South Node is very karmic as well. And I think with Mercury retrograding in Pisces, Venus being in Pisces, for a lot of Virgos, this can definitely translate into relationship karma and trying to, you know, an ex might come back, especially during this retrograde period. So just be mindful of that. It's not a guarantee, of course, but there's definitely a feeling that that might happen with that South Node pretty much conjunct the moon. So what else do we have going on here? Okay, so the Sun in Pisces, in 4-degree orb of the North Node in Pisces as well. Mars newly, freshly entered Pisces, literally within a day. It's at 0 degrees on the 2nd. Mars enters Pisces. Very passive-aggressive transit this. Not good, not bad. It's quite neutral. It's peregrine. But I also say it's quite strategic in the way it can adapt to things, so it allows you to be more adaptable. Again, Mars in Pisces is a little bit passive aggressive in the fact that it can't allow itself to really feel and understand things because it's quite sensitive and emotional. It doesn't want to get hurt. So that makes me think about this Nine of Pentacles of it's too good to be true and I want to get hurt. I don't want to open myself up to the emotions of things in case something doesn't work out. Venus being in Pisces with Mercury. Interesting here as well, obviously Mercury retrograde is going to add shades to it because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So again, communication is not fantastic, as I've mentioned already. And Saturn and Neptune in Aries conjunct. Again, it's one of those weird things. If we look at the aspects, you know, we've got Uranus squaring Mars. And I think that it is giving a little bit of volatility to our actions and our motivations, and it's a little bit angry. Again, it's more passive aggressive than it is angry. It's more like, I don't believe you. I think something's going to jump out the bushes because Uranus is so unexpected. It's like, I don't believe you, and that's making me more sensitive. I don't think it's actually adding anything nasty to this eclipse by any means. We've also got Jupiter sextiling the moon. Jupiter is now it's in Cancer, so it's exalted. It is retrograded, but it is offering support to the moon, and also trining the sun. So the sun and the moon are supported by Jupiter, and that adds a nice shade to things. But generally there's nothing too nasty and janky about this eclipse in my opinion. It's quite a nice release. I do think there is an element of allowing ourselves to trust and be open with others. So how does this affect your rising sign? So if you're an Aries, this is in your 6th house of work environment, co-workers, physical health, giving and receiving. So, you know, obviously you're really feeling the shades of this eclipse. And I don't want to go too much into specifics about how this might affect you because I like people to resonate and kind of, I don't want to put people in a box. You know, I often say, well, it's definitely going to be about this family drama. And sometimes I think people rely on that too much. So I want to give you a broad overview that it's in the 6th house, and in particular Mars, your ruler, is in Pisces, so you might feel there's a bit of passive aggressive nature of I want to release, always doing something for someone else, and maybe I want to give to myself with this love. I don't want to be slaving away, you know, I don't have too much responsibility. Of course, Saturn and Neptune now in your 1st house of self, where you're defining your own independence. So there's definitely a shade here of maybe doing more for yourself. If you're a Taurus, it's in your 5th house. So although the Mercury retrograde is not going to affect your particular house here with bringing an ex back, there is a shade of do I want to release something with a situationship or something more creatively charged? Maybe even feeling like I want to release the need of having to be perfect so that I never get out of my comfort zone. And actually, I do want to be more spontaneous. I do want to accept the rewards. You can also find that you're getting some success from a creative pursuit, or maybe even something really lovely with a child that you have. If you're a Gemini rising, this is in your 4th house. As a mutable sign, this will affect you not only because Virgo is Mercury ruled and so is Gemini, but also the Mercury retrograde in Pisces period is also going to affect you with communication. So there is a potential here to release something with family, like family drama, definitely something in the home itself, but also releasing this feeling of having to overly protect yourself, because the 4th house is very private. It's our sanctuary. And sometimes because it's so private, it never lets anyone in. So it can feel like you're like a princess in a castle, or a prince, maybe, I don't discriminate, in a castle, and you're being protected. And sometimes it's okay to open up and accept that, you know, someone at the front door of the castle wants to say hi to you, because actually you deserve to have someone who's giving you affection. My analogies get worse every week, but it is what it is. If you're a Cancer rising, this is in your 3rd house. I've always say that Cancer risings will feel eclipses more because you're ruled by the moon. So just be mindful that you might feel this. Again, some people don't. It really depends on other aspects in your chart. If you're a Cancer rising with a Virgo moon, for example, then yeah, you're probably going to feel it. In the 3rd house, that's related to communication. Be mindful again of the Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is screwing up the communication aspects a little bit. So you could be releasing that. You could also find that you get really good grades for a project you've done recently. You finish up a book or a project at work or some kind of personal vocation, and it feels like I've put all this hard work in, it's successful. And actually, even though it's not related to the Tarot card 9 of Pentacles, I get 3 of Cups energy here, which is about success and celebrating with friends and whatnot. If you are a Leo rising, this is in your 2nd house. So definitely receiving some rewards with money and abundance and luxury, and maybe feeling like that's too good to be true, or almost cutting yourself off because you're thinking this is not going to work out, right? This can also be about trying to be so perfect and trying to be so hypercritical that you're not allowing yourself to be the most confident, amazing person that you can be. And of course, as a Leo, you want to be confident and dramatic. That's one of your strengths. So definitely consider that. Also, I just want to mention that the Mercury retrograde in Pisces is potentially bringing back exes for Leo rising because of that being in the 8th house. So just be mindful of that one. If you're a Virgo rising, of course, is in your 1st house of self. This is your eclipse. You are front and center. And there's so many different shades, this eclipse, Virgo. So the first thing is, of course, your Mercury ruled. So the Mercury retrograde in Pisces is going to affect you and potentially bring back an ex, because that is in your 7th house of committed relationships. That particular retrograde, which is also next to Venus and Pisces, is opposite the South Node in Virgo, bringing that karmic energy. So you might have to confront and release some energy with relationships and ex partnerships, but also in your 1st house of self, feelings around your own identity. You know, it's kind of like one of those super saiyan identity shifts. And again, very successful. You've put in the hard work. You are doing what you can to be the best version of you, and you're being rewarded with this particular eclipse as well. Again, because Mars is now in Pisces in your 7th house as well, that can bring some passive aggressive nature to relationships. You might actually start getting shades of an old relationship in the new relationship, and you're thinking, oh my God, why is past repeating itself? But again, this eclipse is a really good teacher to say, we're not going to continue bad habits. If you are a Libra rising, this is in your 12th house. So having an eclipse in the 12th house is always a little bit more janky, in my opinion, because it can be a little bit more volatile. It's not the worst thing in the world, but you have to remember that eclipses are supercharged moons about emotions and how we feel about ourselves. And then, of course, the 12th house deals with spirituality, mental health, very much the monk on the mountain. And with this particular Virgo energy, you might find that you're a little bit more hypercritical of yourself, or you're not giving yourself the self-love you deserve. You could also have a really, really important breakthrough on this eclipse where you're like, right, I really want to start living for myself. If you have any really prominent placements in the 2nd house, you might definitely be like, you know what? I am not doing the people pleaser energy anymore. And I know I always talk about that for Libras, but kind of just add up. If you are a Scorpio rising, this is in your 11th house, there's a few things to add here. So because the Mercury retrograde is in your 5th house, there is potential for exes to return. With this Virgo eclipse in your 11th house as well, it's more social. So you could be releasing some energy with a group of people that you work with, friends, but also celebrating with friends as well. Just because we have full moons doesn't mean we have to let go of people. There can be celebrations. Again, this is Nine of Pentacles where it's very successful. So I think we definitely could be celebrating a lot with this particular energy. Also because the 11th house is long-term goals and strategy, wishes and fulfillment. The success that comes could be a manifestation that appears and you're thinking, okay, some of you manifesting an ex and they actually return. Could add up, you know. If you're a Sagittarius rising, this is in your 10th house. So as a mutable sign, this is going to affect you. So this could be a really nice celebration with family and friends with your career. So it could be like getting a job after having a really successful interview, or maybe even saying, I want to move on to something else. For the majority of you, it's probably finishing up a project and feeling like, yeah, I've put the hard work in. Feels like the praise I'm getting is maybe a bit too good to be true, but also, again, needing to be perfect around the workplace, needing to be perfect in public, having to always have your hair done and everything ready. Come on, you're a Sag. We know there's more to life than that, right? There's a lot more meaning to that. So I think that's quite interesting. For some of you, you could be trying to release any criticism that is in your psyche from a mother figure in your life, because obviously we grow up and, you know, in my eyes, sometimes I still like wear clothes and I'm like, I'm showing too much cleavage or something, because it's a trauma that I'm like, got to be covered up all the time. And there's definitely a release of that in the 10th house. If you're a Capricorn rising like myself, this is the 9th house. So this is a celebration of a recent project that you may have finished, especially with grades or, you know, some kind of thesis. I'm kind of linking this to myself because I finished my PhD, but I should be getting like a proper official certificate, graduation certificate that's like, you got the PhD, you're like the doctor. I mean, they already say you're a doctor, but you have to have it like, I guess, in writing to be like, yes, you definitely are, but they say you are when they shake your hand and say, hey, doctor. So that's how that applies to me, because the 9th house is about higher education and academia. This can also be celebrating something by planning a trip as well. I'm also going to do that. I really think I'm going to do the Sedona trip. I feel like I want to do it. But with all that Pisces energy in the 3rd house about communication, short trips, but also being productive, the Mercury retrograde is slowing it down a little bit. So this is more of a, I want to have pleasure, relax. It's not too good to be true, because at the moment you might feel a bit lazy or lethargic, or feeling a little bit like if you do projects, it's not going the way you want them to. If you're an Aquarius rising, this is not your eclipse, thank God. It's in your 8th house though. So having a Virgo eclipse in your 8th house is going to impact the way you feel about your own sense of agency and power, investments and savings and what you share with other people. But also you might find that there is a really strong energy connected to intimacy and merging and how you feel about yourself and the relationships around you. So just be mindful of that. In the 8th house, which is really allowing yourself to be free and open and not be judged or shamed by things, Virgo is a little bit more judgy. Not for everybody, but it's generally more of a judgy and picky sign. So this is one of those where releasing the need to feel like you are being judged or shamed for what you want to do in life is really important. And then finally, Pisces rising. So as a mutable sign, this will impact you, but also it's in your 7th house. So it's in opposition to this moon. What's really important here is that we have a Mercury retrograde in Pisces. We have Venus in Pisces. We have the Sun in Pisces. We have North Node and Mars in Pisces. So it's really, really strong. All of that energy is culminating in a dreamy delusion, a bit passive aggressive with Mars in Pisces, and of course opposite this Virgo eclipse. So there definitely could be a release of a relationship here, or even a celebration of a relationship. Many of you could have had an ex return, very similar to Virgo, but also there is a sense that you are feeling very grateful for the relationships and connections that you do have in life. So treat this eclipse not as I'm going to cut this person off, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, but as a leveling up of what I want from relationships. Because of course, when we have the August eclipse in your sign Pisces, that's going to be a real, I've got to walk away from something that doesn't serve me. So this is going to be much nicer, much more successful, and I would use it. And then of course in March, we'll have a really nice new moon in Pisces where we can manifest really good things for ourselves as well. So I don't think this is nasty for you by any means, but just be mindful because of the retrograde, Mercury retrograde, that it's going to be a little bit iffy for communication. So that was a quick run through of all the zodiac signs, particularly rising signs, and this eclipse. Again, I actually quite like this eclipse. I don't think it's nasty. I've said from the beginning of the year with the horoscopes that it wasn't going to be nasty. And again, it's a little bit too quiet in my opinion. However, I would use this eclipse to celebrate, to take in all the amazing things that the universe is trying to bring you, and not to treat it as a cutthroat, it's a full moon. It's a blood moon actually as well. So whenever we have blood moons, I always feel like it's the feeling of needing to rest and relax and then like recharging for the next moment. So that's sort of the feeling I get here. If you enjoyed that, please drop a like, or what you're kind of looking forward to this eclipse, or maybe you're apprehensive about how was the Aquarius eclipse for you. Was that okay? And I'll see you for the next video, which is the March forecast, and that'll probably be out in 2 days.